There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they want to be admired or whether they want to be strong. Admiration is loud, but strength is quiet. And if you truly wish to build a life that stands firm when storms come, you must learn to grow in silence. Without applause, without announcement, and without waiting for someone else's approval. The first way to build yourself quietly is to cultivate discipline in private. Every great character begins in hidden places. In the early morning when no one sees you getting up, in the late night when you choose work over comfort, in the ordinary hours when you deny your excuses. The world will someday notice the results, but the world will never witness the sacrifices. Quiet discipline is the architect of every strong soul. The second way is to master your thoughts before speaking them. There is wisdom in reflection. Not every emotion deserves a voice. Not every opinion deserves an audience. When you think deeply before you speak, you become a person whose words carry weight. Noise is cheap, but clarity is costly, and clarity grows in the privacy of a thoughtful mind. The third way to build yourself quietly is to fight battles no one else knows about. Many people spend their energy proving they are strong. Few spend their energy actually becoming strong. Face your weaknesses privately. Confront your jealousy, your laziness, your fears, your insecurities. The fight within you will shape the life around you. Victory in the unseen places makes you unshakable in the visible ones. The fourth way is to pursue knowledge without seeking recognition. Learn relentlessly, read deeply, ask questions that make you uncomfortable. Let your mind expand in silence. You don't need to announce every new insight. Truth has a way of revealing itself through the life you live. Quiet learners become wise leaders. The fifth way is to guard your relationships wisely. Not everyone deserves access to the inner rooms of your life. Build boundaries with grace. Surround yourself with people who nourish your growth, not those who diminish it. Some relationships must be kept at a distance for you to grow at all. Protect your peace. It is the soil in which your character grows. And the sixth way to build yourself quietly is to commit to purpose rather than applause. Live for something higher than attention. When you serve, serve sincerely. When you help, help without expecting gratitude. When you work, work as if character is the real reward, because it is. Purpose gives meaning to your effort. Applause gives only an echo. You must remember this. The strongest trees grow in silence. The tallest mountains stand without speaking. Strength does not need to be loud. It only needs to be real. If you build yourself quietly, with discipline, reflection, courage, knowledge, boundaries, and purpose, there will come a day when the life you have created will speak for you more loudly than you ever could. Grow in silence, work in silence, transform in silence. The quiet spaces of life often hold the greatest potential for growth, because silence has a way of stripping away every illusion we carry about ourselves. When there is no audience to impress and no applause to depend upon, a person meets the raw truth of who they really are. Growth in silence is not about hiding from the world. It is about giving yourself the environment where your strengths can mature without pressure and your weaknesses can be acknowledged without shame. In silence, there is room to think, to question, to stretch, and to build inner foundations that are not influenced by the noise of expectations. The world is loud, filled with opinions that compete for your attention, but the quiet places of your life are where you learn to listen to your own convictions. It is there that the deeper truths of responsibility, purpose, and character begin to take shape, forming the unseen architecture of the person you are becoming. Silence becomes a workshop for inner discipline because it frees you from the need to perform. When no one is watching, you discover whether your actions are motivated by genuine desire for growth or a hunger for validation. Many people thrive only when they are being observed. They excel when eyes are on them, but their motivation fades the moment the spotlight disappears. Quiet growth eliminates this dependency. It teaches you to act for the sake of improvement rather than recognition. It is here, in the unobserved moments, during early mornings when the world still sleeps, or late at night when everyone else has retreated, that your commitment is tested. The strength that comes from silent discipline is more durable than anything built for display, because it is rooted in inward conviction rather than outward applause. The silence also forces you to confront the small habits that shape your character. These habits, though invisible to others, determine the long-term direction of your life. You learn to manage your time without being told to do so, to push yourself even when excuses seem more comfortable, to develop patterns of thought that align with who you want to become. These tiny acts of discipline accumulate, slowly forming a reservoir of strength that the world will one day see, but only after years of unseen effort. This is why growth in silence is powerful. It allows excellence to develop patiently, instead of being rushed by the pressure to perform publicly. In a world driven by instant gratification, learning to grow quietly becomes an act of resistance against the urge to broadcast every step. Society today rewards exposure more than effort. People are encouraged to share their progress, their dreams, their struggles, and their achievements, often before those things are ready to stand on their own. But when you resist the need to announce your growth, you give yourself the freedom to make mistakes without judgment, to experiment without commentary, and to evolve without interruption. This quietness protects your progress from unnecessary voices that could weaken your confidence or distort your direction. Silence becomes a sanctuary where your ideas can develop deeply, rather than being shaped prematurely by the expectations of others. Moreover, growth in silence strengthens the heart because it amplifies your inner voice. When distractions are removed, your intuition becomes clearer, and your values become more defined. You begin to understand what truly matters to you, not what the world tells you should matter. This clarity helps you make decisions that align with your long-term identity instead of chasing short-term approval. When you are guided by this inner stability, external criticism loses its power to derail you. You become anchored in something deeper than public opinion. This is how silent growth cultivates resilience, by teaching you to stand firm in who you are, even when the world is loud around you. Silence also teaches patience, a virtue that is rare but essential for meaningful growth. Real transformation is not immediate. It requires time, repetition, and endurance. When you practice growth quietly, you learn not to measure your progress by days or weeks, but by the gradual strengthening of character. You become more comfortable with slow development because you understand that deep roots take time to form. This patience prevents you from quitting too early or comparing yourself to others whose journeys look different. By accepting the slow, steady nature of silent growth, you build a foundation that can withstand pressure, failure, and unexpected challenges. One of the most profound aspects of growing in silence is that it prepares you for moments of visibility. When the time comes for your abilities, character, or purpose to be recognized, you will find that the silent work you have done has made you ready. The strength you built away from attention will support you in the face of pressure. The discipline you developed when no one was watching will become the backbone of your public actions. What you cultivated in the quiet seasons will sustain you in the demanding ones. This is why the quiet process of growth is invaluable. It ensures that when the world finally sees your results, you will not merely appear strong, but will truly be strong with a depth that cannot be fabricated. Silent growth is not glamorous, but it is transformative. It teaches you that the most important changes are often invisible until they are complete. It builds character that cannot be shaken by applause or criticism. It trains the mind to think independently and the heart to move courageously. Ultimately, growing in silence forms the kind of strength that lasts. A strength that does not need to be announced because it is lived. Small daily actions carry a quiet power that most people underestimate, yet they are the true architects of identity and destiny. A single action performed once holds little influence, but an action repeated consistently begins to carve patterns into the mind and shape the course of a person's life. Greatness rarely arrives through dramatic moments or sudden transformation. It is born through ordinary choices made repeatedly, often without recognition or applause. Every person you admire, every individual who has accomplished something meaningful, has been shaped more by their daily habits than by any single breakthrough. These habits become the invisible threads weaving a stronger character, and over time, they define the kind of person you become far more than your intentions or dreams ever will. Most people overestimate the importance of motivation while underestimating the necessity of consistency. Motivation is loud, emotional, and fleeting. It appears in bursts and disappears as quickly as it comes. Consistency, on the other hand, is steady, humble, and quiet. It does not rely on mood or emotion. It relies on choice. When you choose to repeat small disciplined actions every day, you take control of the direction of your life, rather than surrendering it to how you feel in the moment. This daily discipline trains the mind to act even when the heart feels tired, and it teaches the body to keep moving even when the willpower is thin. When repeated long enough, these small actions become automatic, transforming into habits that carry you forward even on the days you feel weak. The beauty of daily actions is that they build identity from the inside out. If you read every day, eventually you become knowledgeable. If you exercise consistently, you become strong. If you speak the truth repeatedly, you become trustworthy. If you practice kindness regularly, you become compassionate. Identity is not something you declare. It is something you prove to yourself through repetition. People often say they want to change their lives, but they forget that life only changes when actions change. And actions only change when daily decisions shift. Every habit you keep is a statement of who you are becoming. Every habit you break is a declaration of who you refuse to be. Small actions also create momentum. At first, progress feels invisible. You might read for weeks without feeling wiser, practice a skill without feeling competent, or save money without seeing a large difference. But habits accumulate quietly until a tipping point arrives, one moment where everything you've been doing begins to show results. This moment is never magical or accidental. It is simply the natural outcome of daily seeds taking root. The world often notices people only after this tipping point is reached, but the real work happened long before the recognition. Growth built on consistent daily actions is slow but deeply rooted, and because of that, it is far harder to shake or undo. These daily actions also shape your internal dialogue. When you consistently follow through on your responsibilities, no matter how small, they strengthen your self-respect. You begin to trust yourself, not because you are perfect, but because you have evidence that you keep your promises. Self-respect grows silently each time you choose discipline over comfort or action over excuses. Eventually, this internal trust becomes a shield against doubt, fear, and external negativity. You stop needing others to believe in you because you have learned how to believe in yourself through habit, not hype. Another aspect of small daily actions is that they simplify overwhelming goals into manageable steps. A goal like, become healthier, improve my character, or build a meaningful life, is too large to tackle at once. But when broken down into daily habits, 15 minutes of exercise, a moment of reflection, a few pages of reading, they become achievable. Consistency transforms intimidating ambitions into attainable realities. Over time, these small actions compound into massive change, the same way drops of water eventually carve through stone. The key is not intensity but persistence. Daily habits also protect you from the trap of procrastination. When you train yourself to act regularly, you reduce the mental friction that comes from delaying important tasks. Procrastination thrives in indecision and fear, but daily routines weaken its power. When an action becomes part of your daily rhythm, it stops being a negotiation and becomes a natural part of your life. This shift frees mental energy and creates emotional stability because you are no longer fighting yourself internally about what needs to be done. Instead, your habits do the heavy lifting. Perhaps one of the most profound truths about small daily actions is how they influence character. Character is not built in moments of comfort or public visibility. It is shaped in private routines and uncelebrated decisions. Every time you choose patience, honesty, discipline, or responsibility in small ways, you strengthen these values in larger situations. A person's character becomes reliable only when it has been practiced consistently. Someone who practices self-control in minor frustrations will handle major challenges with dignity. Someone who commits to small responsibilities will handle greater responsibilities with maturity. Quiet daily actions cultivate a character that can be trusted, admired, and depended on. In the end, small daily actions become the compass that directs your life. They shape your mornings, influence your thoughts, guide your decisions, and ultimately construct the future you walk into. They require no applause, no recognition, and no dramatic effort. Only the willingness to repeat them faithfully. Over days, weeks, months, and years, these actions solidify into a life shaped by purpose rather than chance. They prove that the strongest identities and the most meaningful lives are not built through sudden inspiration, but through quiet, consistent, small daily actions that accumulate into extraordinary outcomes. Guarding your inner life from external approval is one of the most difficult yet transformative disciplines a person can learn, because human nature instinctively craves recognition, acceptance, and affirmation. From early childhood, people learn to measure their value by how others respond, whether through praise, criticism, or silence. As adults, this habit rarely disappears, it merely becomes more sophisticated. Social expectations, family opinions, and the loud standards of society can quietly shape your choices without you even realizing it. But when your sense of self becomes dependent on external validation, you lose the freedom to grow authentically. Your actions become performances, your goals become obligations, and your identity becomes a reflection of other people's desires rather than your own convictions. Guarding your inner life means reclaiming ownership of who you are becoming, protecting your mental and emotional space from the influence of outside voices that do not understand your purpose. The first challenge in this process is recognizing how deeply external approval influences your decisions. Many people make choices based not on what they believe is right, but on what others expect or applaud. They pursue careers that win admiration, hide talents that might invite criticism, speak words that sound acceptable, and suppress truths that might make someone uncomfortable. When this happens repeatedly, a person's inner voice becomes muted. Instead of being guided by personal conviction, they become guided by fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of disappointing others. Guarding your inner life requires a deliberate turning inward. It demands honesty about what motivates you, clarity about what you value, and courage to stand by your principles even when they are questioned. The reason external approval is so dangerous is that it can make you dependent on something you cannot control. Approval is unstable, unpredictable, and often inconsistent. One day you may receive praise, and the next day you may be criticized for the same action. If your identity is anchored in something that shifts so easily, your confidence will rise and fall with the opinions of others. You become emotionally fragile, easily wounded by criticism, and overly excited by praise. But when you guard your inner life, you separate your worth from these fluctuations. You begin to understand that approval does not define your value, and criticism does not diminish it. Your inner world becomes your foundation, not the shifting voices outside of you. To build this inner strength, you must develop the habit of self-reflection. Reflection allows you to examine your thoughts, motives, and choices without the noise of external opinions. It teaches you to listen to your own conscience, your own reasoning, and your own long-term vision. This self-awareness helps you make decisions that align with who you want to become, rather than decisions that simply maintain the approval of others. When you know why you do what you do, you become far less influenced by the opinions of those who do not understand your path. Reflection builds clarity, and clarity builds confidence. Another important element in guarding your inner life is learning the difference between helpful feedback and unhealthy approval seeking. Not all opinions are harmful. Some guidance can strengthen you. The key is to receive feedback without allowing it to define you. People who depend on approval often confuse feedback with judgment and criticism with rejection. But someone who guards their inner world learns to weigh opinions thoughtfully, accepting what is useful, ignoring what is irrelevant, and rejecting what is harmful. This ability to filter voices is essential for emotional maturity. You cannot grow if you are open to every opinion, but you also cannot grow if you close yourself off entirely. Guarding your inner life means allowing wisdom in while keeping insecurity out. You must also learn to embrace solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. It is the environment where your inner life matures. When you spend time alone with your thoughts, you gain a deeper understanding of what matters to you. You learn to enjoy your own company, trust your own judgment, and build autonomy. Many people fear solitude because it removes the distractions they rely on for emotional comfort. But those who grow quietly understand that solitude is the soil where purpose takes root. In solitude, you are free from performance. You are free from comparison. You are free to be honest. Solitude strengthens your inner life so that when you return to the world, you are not carried away by its noise. Guarding your inner life also means setting emotional boundaries. Not every person deserves access to your fears, your dreams, or your weaknesses. If you share too much with the wrong people, their reactions may influence your confidence or distort your direction. Emotional boundaries protect you from opinions that are careless, jealous, or uninformed. They allow you to share your journey only with those who can encourage, support, or challenge you constructively. The more carefully you choose whose voices you allow into your life, the more powerful your inner world becomes. Perhaps the most profound part of guarding your inner life is the courage it builds. When you stop living for approval, you begin living for truth. This shift requires bravery, because approval is comfortable while authenticity is often challenging. But the reward is freedom, the freedom to make decisions that align with your principles, to pursue goals that reflect your real purpose, and to build a character that is not dependent on praise. When you guard your inner life, you learn to stand firm in who you are even when the world questions you. You learn to trust yourself even when others doubt you, and you learn to value integrity over popularity. Over time, this guarded inner life becomes your greatest strength. It makes you resilient when criticized, humble when praised, and steady when confronted with uncertainty. It teaches you that the loudest voices are not always the wisest, and that true confidence grows from within. When your inner life is protected, you become someone who acts with intention, not impulse, someone guided by purpose, not approval. The path of self-development requires moral courage because real growth demands that you confront truths about yourself that are often uncomfortable, humbling, or even painful. Many people seek improvement only in areas that feel convenient or impressive. Yet the deepest forms of growth occur when you choose to examine parts of your character that you would rather ignore. Moral courage means having the honesty to acknowledge your weaknesses without running from them, the discipline to make changes even when no one is pressuring you, and the humility to accept that becoming better often begins with admitting where you have failed. This kind of courage is not loud or dramatic. It is quiet, deliberate, and internal. It requires strength to challenge your own habits, beliefs, excuses, and patterns, not because others demand it, but because you know it is necessary for the person you want to become. Self-development is impossible without first facing the uncomfortable reality that flaws exist within all of us. People often prefer to present ideal versions of themselves to the world, versions that are polished, confident, and unbothered. But those polished exteriors hide a great deal of insecurity, immaturity, or unresolved issues that never get addressed because they are never acknowledged. Moral courage requires removing that exterior and confronting the truth beneath it. It means recognizing when your behavior harms others, when your pride blinds you, when your fear holds you back, or when your ego prevents you from learning. These truths are difficult to accept, but ignoring them traps you in cycles of repeated mistakes. People who grow in a meaningful way do so because they dare to look at themselves clearly, without excuses and without hiding. Another aspect of moral courage is the willingness to take responsibility for your life rather than blaming circumstances, people, or the past. It is easier to point fingers or justify failures by saying life has been unfair. It is much harder to admit that your reactions, choices, and habits play a significant role in shaping your present. Accepting responsibility does not mean ignoring what you have suffered. It means refusing to remain defined by it. It means choosing growth over victimhood, action over complaint, and accountability over avoidance. Those who display this kind of courage understand that improvement begins only when ownership begins. They take responsibility even in small things, like managing their time, controlling their emotions, keeping promises, and honoring commitments, because they know these small acts build a foundation for greater development. Moral courage also involves making decisions based on values rather than convenience. Many people choose what feels good in the moment instead of what is right in the long run. They compromise their principles to avoid discomfort, conflict, or criticism. But growth requires saying no to temptations that weaken you and yes to actions that strengthen you, even when they are difficult. It requires resisting shortcuts, refusing dishonesty, avoiding harmful habits, and choosing integrity even when no one is watching. This kind of courage builds a reputation of reliability and creates a character that can be trusted. It shapes you into someone whose life aligns with their principles, not with the shifting pressures of the moment. Another form of moral courage is the bravery to let go of patterns, relationships, or environments that stunt your growth. People often cling to things that feel familiar, even if those things cause emotional stagnation or moral compromise. It takes courage to step out of circles that encourage negativity, gossip, laziness, or harmful behavior. It takes courage to walk away from influences that diminish your self-worth or prevent you from growing into your full potential. Letting go is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of clarity. When you choose growth over comfort, you allow space for new habits, healthier environments, and stronger connections that elevate you rather than drain you. Moral courage also means having the strength to admit when you do not know something and the humility to seek guidance or learning without feeling threatened. Many people resist growth because they associate learning with weakness or inexperience. But admitting your limitations is not humiliating. It is liberating. It frees you from the pressure to pretend and opens the door to improvement. Asking questions, seeking mentorship, studying deeply, or learning a new skill requires courage because it places you in the position of a beginner. Yet those who are willing to be beginners eventually become masters. This humility strengthens your character and expands your capabilities far more than pride ever could. Another area where moral courage becomes essential is in controlling your reactions, especially in emotional moments. It takes courage to remain calm when anger feels justified, to stay patient when impatience seems easier, to hold your tongue when speaking harshly would bring temporary satisfaction. Emotional strength is not about suppressing feelings, but about guiding them with wisdom. Every time you choose self-control over impulse, you strengthen your moral foundation. Over time, this internal discipline builds a steady and mature character capable of handling pressure, conflict, and stress without losing integrity. Finally, moral courage teaches you to stand alone when necessary. Growth sometimes requires making decisions that others may not understand or support. People may criticize, misunderstand, or even mock your efforts to change. You may be pressured to remain the same for the comfort of those around you. But standing firm in your convictions, even when you stand alone, is one of the highest forms of inner strength. It proves that your choices are rooted not in approval, but in authenticity. By staying loyal to your principles, even in isolation, you build a character that is unshakable and a sense of self that cannot be manipulated. The path of self-development is steep, demanding, and often unpopular. But those who walk it with moral courage emerge wiser, stronger, and more purposeful than they were before.